What's up, folks? Sean the Average Angler coming at you with a fantastic video today. Sometimes I don't know how I think of this stuff, but I got to thinking, and this one is really intriguing, and you guys leave me some comments down there. Let me know which one you think is better. Now, if you like this kind of content, hit that subscribe button. Thanks to all the new subscribers. Channel's growing really fast. I really appreciate y'all hanging out, watching the videos, leaving comments, hitting that like button. One more house cleaning tip. My channel's not a place to talk politics, okay? You drop political comments, I'll just delete them. All right, so today we are going to talk about Wacky versus the Neko Rig. Why one over the other, blah, blah, blah. All kinds of things, because there's multiple ways that you may not have thought about to fish a Wacky Rig. So let's start out with our basics, right? The good old Senko. Very hard to beat a Wacky Senko rig when fish are up shallower. There's also ways to fish them deeper. There's these weighted Wacky heads, right? Zapu heads. That's one of the ones that comes to mind, and they come in a huge assortment of weights and sizes. This one, you can barely even tell there's weight on there. Both are weedless, so you can throw them around things. They're not completely weedless. I have thrown these and snagged on stuff, but they're pretty good. Now, you can use these heavier heads like this one, which I don't really know how heavy it is, but it's heavy enough that it's going to pull that Senko down to deeper water. Now, the way I got into those originally was actually the Jackal Flick Shake, which I still really prefer throwing the Flick Shake. And I think a big part of that is they're just not used as much, so it's a different presentation to the fish. Okay, this size, unfortunately, they don't make anymore. It was really, I have some 5.8s, which you can still get. The 6.8s, I don't know if they're coming back or not, but like on Clear Lake, this 6.8 was a fantastic worm. The 5.8s are a little narrower. I just don't like them as much, but they work great where you have smaller fish. Smaller is relative, okay? We could be talking 4-pounders. Clear Lake has a lot of fish over 4-pounders. So that is another way that we can fish them, right? With our typical Wacky hook, with our weighted Wacky hook, and we can Wacky rig them on a drop shot. You can Wacky rig just about any worm on a drop shot. That Flick Shake, for instance, you can do a robo, you can do fat pack baits worm, just about anything you wanted, you can Wacky rig on a drop shot. Little different presentation than what the fish are used to seeing on the typical either nose hook or Texas rig hook. Well, the only time I really Texas rig anymore is when I'm throwing into cover. If I'm in open water, typically you're going to go with that nose hook. You just get a little more action out of your worm. It moves freer in the water with the currents and the movement you put into the bait. Now, many years ago, when the Senko was around, we originally started with Texas rig, then got into the Wacky rig, and eventually someone local had figured out something that they named the Izzy rig because the guy's name was Izzy, and that was putting a nail weight into the end of the Senko on one side, on a Wacky rig Senko, okay? It worked extremely well, especially in the beginning, because it was presenting a bait in a way the fish weren't used to seeing them. Now again, you can fish all different kinds of weights for your Nekos. Whoops. This is one I like because if you're looking to feel the bottom, it's a lot easier to feel when you got some lead touching it. This style I like if I want to put it up somewhere else in the worm, or I want to break that off. Lead is really nice because you can just break it off. Now, I do have a lot of viewers that just use a screw, you know, a small screw. The advantage of that is you can screw it in. They probably hold pretty decent, because the downside of using this style of weight is a lot of them will fly out when the fish comes up and jumps. And it's a small price to pay to catch a fish in my mind. But there are a ton of options, right down to the little smaller tungsten versions. The downside to this one, not as easy to break, right? Oh yes. And then there's this style with a screw-in wire style. Okay, So those are our weight options for Nikos. Now typically when I'm fishing a Neko rig, I'm looking for some sort of straight tail worm, such as the hit worm. This is a Magnum hit worm from Power Bait. It is the max scent. I'm not gonna open it because these things will dry out. But you can use just about any worm you want. This is a Biz Baits. I think these are 8-inch, 7.5-inch Mag Dizzy. Now this is a pretty cool one because one, it's a very bulky worm. And you can actually throw this on a bait casting rod. You put a heavier weight on it, you're still Neko rigging. And for those that don't know, when these have a scent to them, what you need to Neko rig is an O-ring tool, your worm, and a hook. Pretty simple to do. The other rig that I like to use is the VMC crossover worm for this. And these are actually great for both Wacky or Neko rigs. Okay, the advantage is they're gonna prolong the life of your worm, bait, Senko, whatever it is you're throwing. Now one thing I will say is these rings have gotten a little bit expensive. I just bought this pack the other day, $6.99 for 10 rings. And you will need a pair of pliers. At my local shop, these are 20 bucks, okay? Nice little pliers. I feel like that's a little bit steep for what they are. Anyway, you put it in there. This big old fat worm's gonna be a little bit of a problem with this ring. They come in 3 different sizes, and that thing smells. For the sake of the video, we will use a Senko. The beauty of the Senko, you can Wacky rig it. You can also Neko rig it. Okay, if you're Neko rigging, you want to bring it down to the egg sac there. You're gonna push the ring off the tip of the pliers, and you're all set. Okay, you got a hole going this way if you want a Wacky. You got a hole going the other way if you want to Neko. Okay, put it in there like so. Grab your weight, push it in that Senko, worm, whatever it is you want to use. That's the beauty of the Neko rig. And you're set. You're tied on to here, and you're gonna work that across the bottom like so. Okay, again, there's enough weight here. You can use a casting rod if you want. I'm still not going to throw real heavy line, maybe 12 to 14 maximum. Typically, I'm going to throw this on a spinning rod though. The advantage to the Neko rig versus the Wacky rig, even if you use the weighted version Wacky, you got a lot more resistance in the water going down with a Wacky worm. So a Wacky, although both are used for suspended fish, I would probably first go to the Wacky rig depending on how high in the water column those fish are. As they get deeper, I'm going to transfer over to that Neko rig because this bait falls like this. And there's very little resistance as it goes down, so it will get down very fast depending on the weight you use. The big question, which is better? Well, it really depends on where your fish are at in the water column, right? Where are your fish in the water column? That's the big question. And do they want something flying by them fast? Do they want something that you can move around in front of them? You just make your adjustments to adapt to the fish. Now, most of the time, if I'm going out practice, don't really know what's going on, I may have both of these rigged up. Got them both on the deck. We'll see what we see when we get out there on the water and we start fishing them both. Right now, this time of year, shade lines, folks. Shade lines can be your friend. They are gonna hold fish, especially in these hot weather months. If you don't know where to fish, you don't have electronics, look for shade lines. Go chase shade lines. A lot of our canyon lakes, Orville, Shasta, you will be able to move around and find some shade throughout the day, even when the sun's straight up overhead. Somewhere you're gonna find some shade. So I guess the big question or big observation is in the professional ranks of fishing, I would say the Neko rig has really been a bigger player. Now the reason for that, I think, is a lot of those guys are throwing a really light Neko rig or very, very good at it, and they're picking off suspended fish. Now, one of the advantages to a Neko rig that you don't have with the Wacky Rig is you can throw just about any bait you want on there. You can use a craw worm, right? Put your ring on there, put the weight in the head like so, and you've got a Neko rigged craw worm. You could do a Neko hack in this style of craw bait. The Neko hack is a little piece of plastic. I've got a video on it. You push it through, it has a little eye that comes out the other side, and it holds on there so it doesn't tear your bait every fish you catch. Now you can Neko rig without an O-ring, without a Neko hack. You're just gonna go through a lot more baits that way. With the price of everything going up, we want to preserve them as long as we can. Some baits are harder to get than others. Again, you can do this with just about anything. You could do this with a minnow bait if you wanted to do it with a minnow bait. My general rule of thumb is going to wacky around cover, docks. I like to fish flat docks, floating docks on the water with a Wacky Senko Fat Pat from Fat Pack Baits. Just take that Wacky, skip it up under there with my spinning rod, 15-pound braid to 8-pound or 10-pound fluorocarbon, depending on what you feel you need for the size fish you have or what you can get away with. That's where I'm going to fish the Wacky Rig. If I've got fish I'm seeing suspended high up in the water column on my forward-facing sonar, I may try that Wacky Rig. When the fish are getting down a little deeper, I'm going to switch to that Neko rig. That's me, that's my style. I'm not good enough with that whole Neko rig to catch those suspended fish. Again, you can always use other baits. Also, this is the Fat Pack Baits 3.8 Beastie Bug. That is a fantastic Neko rig bait. All right, if you like this video, you're still here watching, you really should be subscribed. I mean, we practically know each other now. It's been 15 minutes. Thanks for stopping by. I'm Sean the Average Angler. We'll see you on the next one.